FAQs about Carpobrotus edulis. When I first encountered Carpobrotus edulis, or as it's often called, the ice plant, belonged to the Isoaceae family, I was intrigued by its vibrant appearance and low maintenance needs. This succulent, known for its striking purple-pink flowers and fleshy green leaves, is a fantastic choice for anyone looking to add a touch of color to their garden or indoor space. Here's what I've learned about this fascinating plant, answering some of the most common questions. What is ice plant? I always get a kick out of seeing ice plants for the first time each year. They're these fleshy, green plants that sprawl out low to the ground, and what really grabs your eye are the glistening little bubbles all over their leaves. It almost looks like they're frosted over, even in the heat of summer. That's how they got the name ice plant, I guess. I haven't tried growing them myself, but they seem like they'd be perfect for a sunny spot in the garden that needs some low-maintenance color. How long does Carpobrotus edulis take to root? One of the most frequent questions I get about Carpobrotus edulis is about its rooting time. If you're starting from cuttings, you'll be pleased to know that this plant is quite forgiving. Typically, Carpobrotus edulis cuttings take about 2 to 4 weeks to establish roots. To encourage quicker rooting, make sure the cuttings are placed in well-draining soil and kept in a warm, sunny spot. Avoid overwatering, as this can lead to rot. Why is ice plant bad? Those pretty ice plants I love? Yeah, well, they've got a bit of a dark side. I found out recently that they're actually considered invasive in some areas. Apparently, they spread super easily and can choke out all the native plants. It makes sense though, considering how thick and sprawling they get. The bummer part is that they don't seem to benefit the local wildlife much either. I wouldn't mind them so much if they played nicely with the ecosystem, but it sounds like they're kind of a bully in the plant world. How to propagate ice plant? Luckily, propagating ice plant is a breeze and something I've actually had success with myself. They seem to root pretty easily from cuttings. The trick is to snip off a healthy piece of stem in spring or early summer, ideally with a few sets of leaves. I then remove the lower leaves and pop the stem into a pot with well-draining cactus mix. Some folks like to let the cutting callus over for a day or so before planting, but I haven't found that to be strictly necessary. Just stick the stem in the soil up to where the leaves meet the stem, water it lightly, and then wait patiently. Before you know it, you should see roots forming and a new little ice plant starting to grow. It's pretty rewarding to watch them take off from there. How to plant ice plant? Planting ice plant is another easy process that I've enjoyed doing in my garden. The key thing to remember is that these guys are all about sunshine and good drainage. I usually pick a spot that gets slammed with at least 6 hours of direct sun a day. For the soil, I don't fuss too much, they seem happy even in somewhat poor quality dirt. The thing they really hate is soggy roots, so if your garden bed has heavy clay soil, it might be a good idea to amend it with some sand or gravel to help it drain better. Spacing them out is important too. I usually leave about 15 to 18 inches between each plant, giving them room to sprawl out and fill in nicely. Once they're in the ground and watered lightly, they pretty much take care of themselves. Happy planting! How to care for ice plant? Ice plants are like the low-maintenance champions of my garden. Once they're established, they're total troopers. The biggest thing is remembering they're like little succulents, they despise being waterlogged. I usually wait until the soil feels completely dry to the touch before giving them a drink, and even then, I keep it fairly light. During cooler weather, I might even forget about them for a week or two between waterings. They seem to thrive on neglect in that department. Fertilizer? Nope, not necessary. These happy campers don't seem to need any extra feeding. The only other care I provide is a bit of deadheading every now and then. Just snip off any spent flowers to encourage them to keep blooming those beautiful little daisy-shaped flowers throughout the season. That's it. Easy peasy, right? Ice plants are definitely a gardener's delight. How fast does ice plant spread? Those ice plants? They're sneaky spreaders, let me tell you. The first year I planted them, I thought they were staying pretty well behaved, filling in their designated area nicely. Big mistake thinking they'd be content. By the next season, they'd happily sprawled out beyond their welcome, creeping towards my carefully planned flower beds. They grow fast, and their low-lying stems like to root wherever they touch the ground.
If you don't keep an eye on them, they can easily take over.
Now, I have a love-hate relationship with their spreading ways. It's great for filling in bare spots and controlling erosion, but you definitely need to be strategic about where you plant them and be prepared to trim them back if they get too ambitious. What eats Carpobrotus edulis? In my experience, Carpobrotus edulis is relatively pest-free, but it can occasionally attract some critters.
Here's what you might encounter. Mealybugs. These small, white insects can infest the plant, feeding on the sap. Treat them with insecticidal soap or neem oil. Aphids, another sap-sucking pest that can occasionally affect Carpobrotus edulis.
Use a mild insecticidal soap or a strong water spray to remove them. Snails and slugs, they might munch on the leaves, particularly in damp conditions.
Slug bait or traps can help manage them. Is ice plant a perennial? Ice plants.
In warmer climates like mine, they're definitely perennials, the welcome back guests of my summer garden.
They come right back year after year, bringing that burst of sunshine-colored blooms.
But I've heard from friends in colder zones that they act more like annuals, lasting just one season.
It all depends on the winter temperatures.
These guys are all about sunshine and warmth.
If your area gets frosty winters, they might not survive.
But if you're like me and have a hot summer climate, plant those ice plants and enjoy them year after year.
Just remember to keep an eye on their spreading ways. Is ice plant edible? You won't believe this.
Ice plants, those ubiquitous summer sparklers in my garden, turn out to be edible.
I only recently discovered this.
Apparently, you can eat the leaves and stems, both raw and cooked.
I'm still experimenting with them in the kitchen.
They have a salty, slightly tart flavor that's interesting. Some folks say it's a bit too much on its own, but I kind of like it.
I've been throwing them in salads for a surprising pop of salty freshness.
They also seem like they might be good sautéed with some garlic and olive oil. I'm thinking they could be a fun alternative to spinach or kale.
Plus, how cool is it to be able to snip some garnish straight from your own garden? Definitely going to be trying more ice plant recipes this summer. Is ice plant toxic to dogs?
Here's the thing about ice plant and dogs, luckily, they're considered non-toxic by organizations like the ASPCA. That was a relief for me to learn, considering my curious pup who likes to munch on interesting garden finds. So in short, if your dog happens to snag a bite of ice plant, there's no need to panic. However, it's always best to keep an eye on your furry friend just in case. Even though ice plant itself isn't poisonous, eating a lot of any plant can cause an upset stomach in dogs. Plus, those ice plant leaves are pretty salty. Too much sodium can make your dog thirsty and lethargic. So, if you notice your dog going to town on the ice plants, maybe distract them with a toy or redirect them for a walk. But overall, ice plant seems to be safe for our canine companions in moderation.
When does ice plant bloom? In my experience, ice plants are real show-offs when it comes to blooming.
They tend to start blooming in spring, right around when the weather starts to get consistently warm.
But that's not all. These are some serious long bloomers.
If I keep them happy with sunshine and well-drained soil, they'll often flower all through summer and even sometimes into early fall.
It's like a non-stop party of sunshine-colored blooms in my garden. It's pretty amazing how long they can keep the display going. Do deer eat ice plant? You want another reason to love ice plant in my garden. Deer? Those nibbling menaces? Thankfully, they tend to leave my ice plants completely alone.
Deer seem to be turned off by the ice plant's fleshy, succulent leaves and sometimes even the slightly salty taste.